World-class Grandmaster Anish Giri takes on 18-year-old 2005 born Rohith Krishna, an international master from India. Anish opens the game with one knight to f3, and Rohith now has the black pieces to decide how to react. It's always exciting when super GMs take on IMs who are rated around 2400. That's a gap of nearly 300 ELO points there, and is that going to show in the game is what the question everyone has on their mind. d4 by Anish, and now what does Rohith play? He goes d5, so very solid system. And will Anish now play c4, transposing it into Queen's Gambit territory? No, he actually plays pawn to c3, inspired by Nihal Sarin perhaps, because he likes to play c3. And with this move, Anish has played against the move c5, because then you can take and protect that pawn. So bishop f5 has been played by Rohith, and now Anish can put his bishop to f4, but also there is an idea to put queen on b3 to attack b7, and he does exactly that. He puts his queen on b3, attacks the pawn on b7. How does Rohith defend it? Clearly you don't want to play a move like b6 and weaken the light squares. So he goes queen c8, which is the best move. And now often we have seen white players losing a tempo to play the move c4. Is Anish going to do that? Well, he's taken quite a bit of time, 5 minutes for this move, and played his bishop to f4, not leaving the piece. Oh, he brings his bishop back. What? He's touched that piece. What has happened to Anish? Well, finally he does play it to f4 and smiles. Well, that is quite an interesting thing that Anish did there. Maybe he forgot his opening prep, and maybe he recollected that, oh, I had to go c4 there. Something did go wrong. But it's a normal move, it's a decent move. e6 played by Rohith now. And Anish can continue his normal development here with pawn coming up to e3. Now he plays his pawn to e3, presses the clock, and moves on. And now Rohith thinks for 5 minutes, brings his bishop to e7. It's a very non-confrontational opening that we have, but one which can very quickly get very sharp. So first Anish plays his knight to d2, controlling the e4 square. The knight is well positioned here, and later he can play his other knight to h4, trying to win the bishop pair. That's a very typical idea, also played by Magnus in his first round game. Castles is not a good move by Rohith, because now Anish does have the opportunity to play knight h4 and win this bishop. He does play it, knight h4 on the board, and now he's going to win the bishop, because if you play bishop g4 trying to preserve it, there is h3, bishop h5 and g4, and eventually I can take the bishop here. So Rohith goes c6, and he tells Anish, I'm okay with the fact that you will win my bishop, but what I will have is some kind of harmony. The harmony lies in the fact that I will have my pawns on light squares, even the one on f5. I will have these pawns, and my bishop will be on dark squares, and that is how Rohith sort of envisages that his position is pretty fine. Anish now develops his bishop to e2, which is a very interesting decision, because he could have also put his bishop on d3, which is an active square, but he has some deep idea on his mind. a5 played by Rohith, trying to expand on the queen side, and now Anish can simply castle, natural move, but he goes h3, very nice move. And this is something to learn from. Whenever your opponent has this pawn here and your rook is still on h1, you can play g4 and open up lines. He goes rook e8, and maybe it's time for Anish to push his pawn to g4. He thinks for a bit, because Anish really likes clarity in chess, and that he seems to have found with this move. g4 takes on g4, and Rohith is quite confident that he is not giving his opponent too much there. H takes g4 played. Now if you get the move g5, white is clearly better with the rook on the open file. So it's very important for Rohith now to take the pawn on g4. Good or bad, he must take it. Along with the support of the queen here, he takes it. Two options here for white. One is to come back queen d1, hit the knight. The other one is to come to c2 or to take on g4. Well, Anish goes and takes it. This might not be the best idea from an attacking perspective, but I think Anish is very happy that he's able to recover the pawn, which is the pawn on b7. He takes it, yes. He's going to take the pawn. Queen takes b7. So now the material has been equalized and also the rook is hanging. So you need to move your knight away. Knight to d7 looks like the best move. And that is the move that Rohith has played. Knight to d7. But now Anish has the opportunity to take another pawn. And notice that rook cannot come on b8. Neither of the rooks, because the bishop controls that square. So Anish very greedily chops off another pawn. This is greedy Anish in action. He's now a pawn up. The only problem is that his king is still in the center of the board. Queen f5 played by Rohith. And now Anish can quietly go back with his queen to a4, which he does. He brings his queen back to a4 and he's hoping that he can go long castle, queen c2 and trade the queens off. Very interesting move here by Rohith is g6, so that whenever queen c2 comes, he's not forced to exchange the queens. There is a pawn in between the queen and its attack on the h7 pawn. Anish, long castles, good or bad, he had to do it. Now, the point here is that there are these two files open against the white king, and rook c8, Rohith takes one of those files. Now, queen c2 should be played. That seems like a very logical move, but he goes rook g1, which is also fine. The rook is placed on the open file. And there are some very interesting tricks that can happen. Rook a6 is a big mistake. And here Anish has a great tactic. The tactic is to play rook h5. Now the pawn can't take because it's pinned, and queen takes is met with queen takes d7. And actually Anish does not find it. He goes rook g3. He misses this point. And now black is back in the game. If Rohith plays knight f6, he is doing phenomenally well because rook b6, there's pressure here. He goes rook c6, which is also fine. He is threatening at some point to take here. So black's position does look very intimidating. So Anish quickly goes and offers a trade. Of course, if you take the queen, white is out of danger zone. So black keeps the queen on the board with queen e6. And now the threats are to play a4, a3. And if you play a4, a3, then bishop takes a3 comes in. So king b1 played by Anish. He's trying to run away with his king, but a4, fantastic move by Rohith Krishna here. Taking the pawn here would not be the best idea as the rook opens up and it could lead to a huge attack. So Anish ignores it and plays in the center. Good move. Center play a3, fantastic move by black. Now the game is heating up because c3 pawn is getting weak. The base of the chain has been hit. b3 played by Anish here. Well, one of the things which e4 did do is open up the defense of the rook on c3. So the pawn is no longer hanging, but Rohith brings another piece to attack. Now Anish takes the pawn on d5. He seems to have calculated it all. He looks very calm. Queen takes d5 and now a fantastic move, queen e4. With this, he's able to trade the queens because if the queen moves away, then this is hanging on b4. Maybe knight f6. Ooh, he attacks the queen and also defends his own. So Anish takes the queen and now knight takes d5 has been played. The knight is attacking c3 and f4. So you need to take the bishop now. He does take the bishop or not. Yes, he does. He takes the bishop on b4 and now knight takes on f4 is possible. Yes, he takes. Knight takes f4 on the board. And now white needs to decide how to continue. I think Anish's next move, very logical, puts his knight on c4, stopping the black rooks from entering. The position is still very complicated because although white is a pawn up for now, the knight on d5 is attacking the pawn. Anish must play the move b5. That's the best move in the position, but he makes an error. He takes here and Rohith must take this pawn on b4 and black is really doing well. But instead Rohith gets tempted with the move rook f6, which is not a great idea because now Anish can give up this pawn and play b5. That is what he can do. But instead he plays f3, and now Rohith must take the pawn on b4 with his knight. It seems like the best option here. Knight takes b4 and black is doing well, but he goes rook c3, and this is not a good idea because Rohith does not care about the pawn on b4. He's trying to win the f3 pawn. How is that pawn even very important? B pawn is the key pawn because the pawn is moving down the board. It's only 3 steps away from queening. Well, but for Rohith, he loves that the fact that he has these 3 connected passers on the king side. That's the reason why he takes, and now rook takes on f3. And the thing is that black would be completely fine in this position if his pawn started to advance. However, rook c1 is a fantastic move that Anish has played. His ideas could revolve around rook c5, kicking this knight out, but h5 played, and now knight comes to c4. Anish has 6 minutes 55 seconds, Rohith has 3 minutes 40 seconds, and here it's totally winning. Pawn comes to h4, important move, because if you played knight c3 check, I can simply take and push my pawn to queen. So that's the reason why he pushes his pawn to h4, and now Anish plays his pawn to b6. Rohith takes it, knight takes, Anish is a piece up, and this should be very straightforward victory for Anish Giri. But the black pawns say, wait a bit, we are coming down the board and the knight is slightly out of the game. So Anish pushes his pawn on d5. This is the best move in the position. Next, he can go d6, d7 as well. h3 played by Rohith, and now important is to play d6. A very important move, and the winning line can go d6, rook d3, d7, f5, king c2, and now this way you are able to control all of the pawns and white is better. But instead rook d1 played. This is not the best move because now Rohith plays h2 and d6 still is winning, but now it's getting more and more sharp in this position because you have rook d3 and h1 queen. But Anish goes rook h1, and this is already a mistake because he's missed his opponent's next move. Rohith has seen something that Anish hasn't, and that is the move g4, and you can sense that Anish has missed something very big here because after rook takes h2, which is his plan, in comes g3, he takes on h2, but now g3 is very, very powerful because after rook f1 and rook f2, black is able to trade. g3 comes in, and you can see Anish has 27 minutes on the clock, but his position now very difficult. He thinks only for 2 minutes and he plays rook h4 because that's the only move here. You know, you go rook d2, there's already rook f2 coming in, followed by pawn coming to g2. So that's the reason why rook h4. Now f5 played by Rohith. Suddenly the position has equalized completely. Rook h5, and his idea is to come from behind to stop the pawn. Is the position now fine for black? Yes, it is. He comes king f7. Rohith has defended admirably, and this is a great case of never giving up. Now king c2, you can already push your pawn to g2, or you can give a check. Yes, a check is a good move. And now when the king comes up, it's very important to play your pawn to g2. And the defense and the beauty is that after rook g5, king f6, rook g8, king f7, king e3, there is the move rook c2, and the rook does not get the g3 square because of rook c3 check, but instead in this position here, Rohith has blundered. Instead of pushing the pawn, he gives a check, and now king has come to d4. These possibilities no longer exist of taking away each and every square on the g file from the white rook, and this is completely winning position for white now. Just with this one check, Rohith has given up all his chances, and now Anish, you can see there, he's just a bit confused as to where his opponent has missed or what is his opponent's plan to a simple move like rook g5. Well, he plays his rook to g5, and now g2 is hanging, so rook f2 is played, but now you can simply go king e3 and hit the rook. And there are many ways to win now. Even d6 looks very strong. but Anish, I think, does it in the most clinical fashion. He brings his king to e3, and just like that, he is now completely winning. Rohith takes the pawn on a2. He's still hoping that if he can win the pawn here and this one, he should be winning. But knight on c4 takes away these two squares from where the rook could attack the pawn, and it's now very well placed. You can see that Anish now knows that he's completely winning this. He can just go rook to g3 back, and this time there are no checks on this rank, and he's completely safe. Yes, rook g3, next move king f3 coming up, and you can chop off the pawn on g2 and win the game. Rook c2 played by Rohith, but there is this move king f3, and I think it's time to resign. Anish Giri has played this well. This endgame was just so complex, and at some point from a completely winning position it turned into a draw, and then again Rohith blundered, and there you see he resigns. Anish shakes hands with a smile. Rohith played very well, fought very well, but Anish in the end, you can see from his face that he has dodged a bullet.